have all of these studies proving that this is a very hazardous thing to do, that it produces behavioral changes, many of which we're seeing in the populations that are drinking fluoridated water. We know it bioaccumulates, it gets worse over time. We know that it's absorbed into the plants and the foods, and the concentration in the foods is rising significantly. Yet, we have a government that is still pushing as hard as they can, using taxpayer money, to get all the water supply in the United States fluoridated. So I leave it to the audience to think for themselves. What could possibly be the justification for doing such a thing? If you've demonstrated it doesn't reach its objective, that is, reducing cavities, which everybody now has admitted, even the ADA has had to admit it, why is it still being added to the water? If it has these profound health effects, why is it still being added to the water?
But one of the significant things is that the Russians carried out all sorts of experiments on people living in the Gulag. One of them, of course, was to fluoridate the water. Why? You fluoridate the water, why people are not as aggressive as they ordinarily would be. In fact, what is the active ingredient in Prozac that is so widely distributed in America today? Well, it's a fluoride compound.
When I first presented the results of these studies, one of the individuals sitting and listening to the results, he says, "Do you have any idea what you're saying?" And he says, "You're telling us that we're reducing the IQ of children." And basically I said, yes.
Really, whether you need it or not, it's a virtual medicine cabinet in your tap water if you live in many, many areas across the country. There's a scary new report out today. The Associated Press did a big amount of research on this, and the findings show that there were traces of prescription drugs in the water supply used by 41 million Americans in some of the biggest cities in the U.S.
New worries tonight about the safety of America's water supply. In the first nationwide investigation of its kind, the Associated Press found that at least 41 million of us are drinking water that contains traces of prescription drugs. And now many are wondering, is our water safe?
To the water we drink, the Associated Press has published the findings of its investigation into the drinking water in 24 major metropolitan areas. What they found were trace amounts of pharmaceuticals.
Barbara Biggs of Denver's largest sewage plant says most of the nation's wastewater plants simply can't remove all the estrogen in the water.
We're concerned about the effect on the aquatic life, but we're also concerned about our ability to actually treat for these estrogens and estrogen mimickers.
Estrogen mimickers are believed to be caused by chemicals called nonylphenols, found in everything from paints and rubber to cosmetics and plastics. Considered a possible cause of kidney, eye, liver, and reproductive problems, they've been banned in much of Europe and are under review in Canada. But still common here and flowing out of sewage plants and into America's rivers. Government researchers recently found natural estrogens and estrogen mimickers in 80% of the streams they tested in 30 states.
We would be ingesting these chemicals, would absorb them, and they would add to whatever natural hormones we already have in the body.
The impact on humans, no one is certain. But since finding evidence that estrogen may be turning male fish into female fish, scientists are now looking at what it means for the nation's drinking water. In a state that prides itself on living in harmony with nature, evidence, say researchers, of a hormonal imbalance. Tom Costello, NBC News, Boulder, Colorado. The stars